So we live in an age where media is everywhere and stories flow freely across different technological platforms. But control is no longer in the hands of the content producers. Consumers today choose to acquire their media immediately in real time. And all the while, data is keeping count of everything in our lives. So historically, transmedia storytelling has been successful in having creators with wonderful stories develop and distribute entertainment franchises to the audience. But often, the story world has been mostly created by what we call the benevolent dictator. But even with entertainment today, that paradigm is definitely being disrupted. Take, for example, the Johnny Cash Project. Have any of you seen this project? No? A few of you? This is a crowdsourced music video by Erin and Chris Melk. And I'll show you just a quick clip here.
We created this project to give Johnny Cash fans a chance to collectively make his final music video.
Each person created their own frame of the video to make a tribute for Johnny.
When I checked out the Johnny Cash Project, I was completely blown away. I got to see people's artwork flashing before my eyes, just different images, but always following this cohesive video storyline.
I felt really sad when he died, and I just thought it'd be wonderful. It'd be really nice to contribute something to his memory.
It really allows this last recording of his to be a living, breathing memorial.
The artists that contributed, I mean, I've seen everybody from Japan, Venezuela to the States, you know, to Knoxville, Tennessee.
I didn't know that I could connect to someone from such a different background as mine, and for it to mean quite as much as it does.
So this is one example of how entertainment properties are changing. And technology and media stories are really coming together, where technology is being put in the hands of the audience to participate from the beginning. And from that, data is aggregated and an idea is co-created alongside the audience as a collective, allowing a new distributed and adaptable story to emerge. So what we've learned in the shift of how audience is now an active producer and not just a consumer in the media experiences is this: there is no transmedia formula. Look at this quote from media scholar Henry Jenkins. Transmedia refers to a set of choices made about the best approach to tell a particular story to a particular audience in a particular context, depending on the particular resources available to particular producers. Can I say particular one more time for you? So these flexible strategies, in no particular order, are leveraged by producers and consumers alike to shape mediated experiences. So today, I'd like to expand upon Henry's blog post, which was Transmedia 202, Further Reflections on Transmedia Storytelling, and really share with you a few examples of how there are new transmedia logics shaping convergence culture that we are exploring at the Innovation Lab that I'm a part of. So in other words, how can we think about the flow of content, information, and knowledge as it moves across media in a variety of different contexts? So let's take a look at the newsroom as one of the examples of where we're witnessing a significant shift in the production and consumption of programming in the era of participatory culture. So television news programs are still being produced today as a product that news networks think is going to be watched at 6 o'clock in the evening on a big TV screen in your living room. But how many of you actually watched the news at 6 o'clock last night? Anyone? Raise your hand. Right, exactly. This totally needs to be disrupted. And it isn't any new news, no pun intended. Data tells us that the last best evening news was the year in 1980. And this was combined audiences in the US from the 3 evening news networks. And it's been declining ever since. So I'm sure you could probably see this decline since 1980s in France as well. With the rise of citizen journalism and the growing accessibility of social media and grassroots media production tools, the field of news media is generally opening up gradually, and it's allowing for engagement of a multitude of voices. So let's take the example of Twitter as a hashtag. I call this hacker journalism. And a hashtag is a common social practice for millions of users on Twitter and a way to self-organize around subjects that matter, something we've seen over and over again as we perhaps ourselves have participated in things such as hashtag Occupy Wall Street, hashtag Arab Spring, hashtag US presidential debates, or maybe even more recently, where the world watched as the Boston bombings unfolded over social media in real time. Social media quickly became the most important communication channel and was available for millions. And within minutes of the bombing, Wikipedia quickly launched the Boston Marathon explosion page and was updated continuously by people on the ground in Boston. Hashtag Boston Marathon on Twitter was used in fact-checking and real-time news. Reddit aggregated information as it happened, and you can still go back and look at it today. And Google created a person finder site, which enabled people to either find info on someone they were seeking or actually post data on someone that they had found. Now, the media scape is increasingly complex, and citizen journalists and YouTube sitcoms are competing with professional media companies. This doesn't mean that the professional journalist is a role of the past. Instead, at the Annenberg Innovation Lab, we're exploring it as transmedia journalism by asking this question: how can you design a balanced newsroom that is available in real time? It's both customized and curated and offers a credible approach to issues. One project that you're seeing here is in development at the lab, and it's a real-time news program that has a personalized anchor, i.e. that's an avatar up there. It can be anyone you want. And you can curate news based not only on your social connections, not just Twitter, but we're looking at a variety across different social media platforms. And it also has the ability to discover editorials by journalists, because as much as we believe that social connections is important and we like what our friends like, we're losing the fact that we're beginning to live in a bubble and we're forgetting about the discoverability factor. So how do you factor that in the experience? Another logic we're exploring at the lab is transmedia branding. The transmedia revolution is doing the same thing for the marketing industry as it did for entertainment. Brands understand the value of engaging fans through story. Take Coca-Cola, for example. Coca-Cola has 55 million likes on Facebook, yet fewer than 2% of those people engage with the content. So one metric wows you, while another shows you that the first one's not that exciting. People may have a strong affinity for Coke, but advertising dollars are not being optimized to encourage participation. So brands often associate themselves with an entertainment property, and we can clearly see this with the return of the shared fictional universe of Superman in this summer's blockbuster Man of Steel, which was actually showing in 2 screens just down the street from my hotel this weekend. So to expand the concept of branding towards a transmedia brand experience is to be open and willing to encourage new emergent markets that the brands did not intend. The power of new media comes from the collective intelligence, public participation, and spreadability, because we know if it doesn't spread, it's dead. So the importance of marketing cooperation has significantly increased over the years. Companies such as Gillette recognize partnerships as an effective means for untapping growth potentials they couldn't realize on their own. So take, for example, their latest campaign, which is How Does the Man of Steel Shave? That is asking Superman fans to vote on the best theory for the clean-cut shave. So here are some of the theories. You can go to the site and vote for yourself.
All right, so new Superman movie.
1 minute he's got a full-on beard. The next,
no beard. Yeah, what's with that?
How does he shave?
It's a good question, and one susceptible to scientific
It's
analysis.
fireproof, it's bulletproof.
Can't just simply grab a razor.
You know, a big jackhammer, bolt cutters.
Because he's one of the most powerful beings ever lived.
But his hair got cut somehow.
Bam! Blast some hair off this way.
So how does the Man of Steel shave?
How does the Man of Steel shave?
Vote for my theory.
Vote for my theory.
Vote for our theory.
See all the theories at howdoesshave.com.
Anyone want to vote? Okay. That's interesting, right? I still think it's a benevolent dictator where participation is minimum through voting for one of the 4 people you see in this video. It's not like I'm able to put up my ideas of how Superman shaves. Yet control to those who have historically shepherded the brand message is a thing of the past. Now, everyday people are appropriating, remixing, and recirculating brand icons in ways that are often beyond the control of the corporation. Now, sometimes this actually lowers the cost of spreading the word about new products and services. It can be a benefit. But sometimes it's in ways in which challenges the corporation's claims, as you can see in this recent article from one of the superfans who really actually said, hey, Gillette, this is old news. We've been talking about it as superfans for decades. Now, media and entertainment brands are the story, and their transmedia nature enables them to engage with pre-existing fan communities and cater to the culture of these communities. However, most products or services that consumers or companies purchase do not come with a ready-made story they want to share. Since a narrative is central to transmedia branding, companies are presented with 2 options: create a story or join a story. Whichever route they choose, in order to be consistent, it's essential that that story has good topic, tone, characters, and is in alignment with the way the brand speaks and behaves. So, for example, see how Mr. Clean aligns itself with Superman.
No one can say for certain where he came from, but they're certain he was born to clean. See, while most little boys always find ways to make messes, he'd always find ways to get rid of them. He had plenty of friends, but a different idea of fun. As he grew older, his curiosity grew with him. So he left the home he loved to learn more. And when he learned everything he could in a classroom, his passion drove him further. Until the day finally came, he learned everything there was to learn about getting rid of grime. The amazing part? He wasn't doing it for himself. He was doing it to help others. No matter who they were, where they lived, or how big the mess was. It's hard to say what might have been exaggerated over time, but one thing's for sure. When it comes to clean, there's only one Mr.
Now we're getting somewhere with transmedia branding. The Mr. Clean imitation doesn't directly apply to the Man of Steel entertainment property, but the release of this parody during the same time as the release of the film echoes the backstory of Superman and extends it to creating a backstory for Mr. Clean. So Mr. Clean joined the story. People are interested in stories that may be true or fictional, serious or funny, aspirational or provocative, entertaining or thought-provoking, as long as they're engaging. Most importantly, such stories, whether they're directly associated to the brand or not, are passed along when people find these narratives meaningful and emotionally engaging. Memes, such as this one, represent a type of content that is particularly suitable for transmedia narratives because of their spreadable nature. Spreadability is a key enabler of transmedia branding. Now, Doc Searles, who wrote the book, The Clue Train Manifesto, distilled the core problem of branding into one sentence. There is no market for your messages. Instead, he argues, markets are conversations. Transmedia branding is about fan involvement, and nothing speaks more volume than the spirit of fan activism. So in the wake of the new Superman title, a nonprofit organization in the United States called the Harry Potter Alliance, who often uses popular culture like Harry Potter to actually make change in the world, kind of sparked by young adults' interests, has partnered with Define America and Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and undocumented American Jose Antonio Vargas for the Superman is an Immigrant campaign. Now, this campaign is hosted on Tumblr, and it takes a page from the campaign We Are the 99% movement. And people from all over the internet write their immigration stories on a piece of paper and share them. And they make it easy for people to participate. They have a very low barrier to participate by actually creating a site and actually providing the tools necessary for people to load their own posters. And the submissions really speak for themselves. Already, the site tells the story of immigrants from all walks of life, from first-generation Americans to 1 decade removed from their family's arrival. The collective message for this Superman is an Immigrant campaign is this: we are the American way. This principle, markets as conversations, is a core principle of transmedia branding. So rather than bombarding target audiences with unwanted and redundant brand messages, brands engage audiences in compelling conversations across many different channels in a way that consumers can and are encouraged to participate, interact directly with the brand or with other audience members, even culture jam that brand, and create content and become part of that story. So in addition to creating, changing, and spreading content, effective participation relies on brand understanding the culture of the audience. As Grant McCracken points out, corporations live and die by the connection to culture, which refers to the ideas and the emotions and the activities that make up the life of the consumer. So one way to do this is to take brands to the streets through sponsorship of events and experiences that have brand connect with their audience's lifestyles and activities. So some of you might know of Red Bull. Red Bull is not just placing their brand name on an event and walking away. They're the leader in really contemporary brand experiences. They always play an active role in the event they sponsor, and they work tirelessly to leave their consumer with good memories. Their one goal when talking with Red Bull is that to be at the front of a consumer's mind if they are in need of energy. So it goes across everything that they're doing. And they deeply understand the culture of the young adult consumer. We always see Red Bull at the center of any daring, adrenaline-fueled activities. But what if you have a brand that has been around for a very long time? Retro branding has become a phenomenon over the past several years as older brands are revived and successfully relaunched, and often inspired by new waves of interest from online fan communities. A modern twist on nostalgia can appeal to old audiences while at the same time engaging new audiences. In many cases, audiences themselves are creating content and attaching new modern meaning to old brands of yesteryear. So take, for example, Levi Strauss & Company. Levi's goal is to engage the 18 to 34 creative class with the definition of pioneering a new frontier that so closely aligns with the history of Levi Strauss & Company's origin story. At the Innovation Lab, we've been consulting with Levi's on their transmedia brand experience with artist Doug Aitken's Station to Station project. Now, this is a moving art project in the form of a train that will travel from the Atlantic to the Pacific in the United States this coming September. And I'll give you a little sneak peek of that. American Station to Station is going to connect artists, musicians, and creative pioneers. And so for a short time, I think the most interesting place in the US in September is going to be this moving target. But it's in the US, and Levi's actually has a global brand. Maybe some of you are wearing Levi's jeans in this audience. So they came to us and they were like, how do we actually think about this if this sponsored event is happening in the United States? So a key characteristic and transmedia branding that holds just as relevant from storytelling to brands is explore the world. In associating brands with experiences, connecting local to global audiences is just as important. So with Station to Station, the railroad is central to the fantasy and communication of the frontier mythology. And the railroad is representative of a desire for freedom. So Levi's goal is to expand the reach of Station to Station by tapping into the audience's existing investment in the myth of the global frontier. So one way to achieve this is to extend the timeline beyond the 3-week event in September. So central to the timeline of Station to Station is pre- and post-programming, which will enhance promotion and participation with Station to Station, while also seeding the next Levi's season by showing audiences and discovering alongside them how going forth together happens. This here shows the transmedia map we created with Levi's for them to capture the varied ideas to extend and varied audiences to extend the timeline across multiple media platforms. For example, locally, we discussed how Station to Station could become a site for consistent learning, emphasizing local maker culture, which is becoming really, really hot, and connecting it to other types of arts and crafts across the world. So as we see in the artisan connections within the Station to Station experience, transmedia often offers numerous opportunities for learning. So transmedia processes show us that there is more than one way to tell a story, more ways we can learn about the characters in their world, and that such insights encourage us to imagine aspects of these characters that have not yet made it to the screen, or perhaps never will make it to the screen. While some might look at it strictly for entertainment value, creating a new lens to look at story offers a different point of view. So another distinct logic we've explored at the Annenberg Innovation Lab is transmedia play. Human imagination feeds upon the culture around it, and children, which is where my heart is, shows enormous capacity to reimagine the stories that enter their lives. Play is not approached as a frivolous activity, but as a meaningful and important mode of interacting in the world. So the way of understanding play is aligned with the definition of the new media literacy, which we define as the ability to experiment with your surroundings as a form of problem solving. So for many children, this kind of mixing and matching of media is not a new mode of play. As children remix media properties through imaginative play, experimentation, and creative expression, as you can see here with my son and his Darth Potter costume, they create their own rules for how media can be used. So in transmedia play, children participate in both old and new media interactions, and often children's imaginative stories and experimentation is done socially with their peers and also the adults in their lives. But often, adults and children enter into collaborative transmedia projects together, but they start off inherently in different positions of power. So it can be tricky to navigate from consulting children to actually involving children more deeply in the design without tipping the scales and overburdening kids. So a blend of this informal and formal opportunities provides the type of flexibility for children to come to a transmedia experience on their own accord. So this here is Robot Heart Stories. It was created by Lance Wheeler and the Story Pirates, and it's a good example of offering this flexible contract between adults and children.
A robot crash lands in Montreal and must travel to Los Angeles in order to return to her planet. 2 classrooms, a continent apart, work together to help a lost robot find her way home. The children's creativity powers the robot across North America, and their imaginations determine the robot's journey. Whatever destination the students dream up, the robot and our team travel there and take a photograph. Then designers and illustrators bring the children's imaginations to life. After the robot reaches LA, she will board an actual rocket headed into space, taking with her the children's stories and artwork. Whenever the students look up into the night sky, they'll be reminded of how far their imagination and creativity can carry them. Robot Heart Stories is an experiential learning project led by 2 educational innovators, the Dr. Julian Foundation and Story Pirates. Together, they will help place education directly in the hands of the students. Can a robot reboot education?
I think it might. So as you can see from this video, the Robot Heart Stories was a push and pull of shared decision-making between children's creative content. I mean, imagine coming up with something and then actually seeing it come to life. And the transmedia play structure created by the adult producers. So having children participate in such an experience encourages them to imagine the robot and the other children in the sister school as partners in their play. And participation in fandom can be a next step in imaginary play, with children further imagining what are the possible publics with which I might be able to engage in the future. Now, another example is Kane's Arcade. This originated as a short documentary film by Nervin Mullock in 2012, where he actually stumbled upon 9-year-old Kane, who had created a game arcade out of cardboard boxes and everyday objects in his dad's auto mechanic garage. Any of you know about Kane's Arcade? The film soon spread across the web and inspired people to foster creativity and entrepreneurship in children around the world. So today, Kane's Arcade has now sparked a new nonprofit organization called the Imagination Foundation. And they're building open access spaces that allow for rich transmedia world building. These places to play are not only a web platform for kids, parents, and educators to share their stories like Kane's Arcade, but also share project-based learning activity kits and curriculum. There's also a network of permanent and pop-up maker spaces in underserved communities, and the orchestration of locally hosted events like the Global Cardboard Challenge, which fosters creativity and community. These spaces blend in-person locations and online communities such as DIY.org and Minecraft. So listen to this short little clip as to how far they've gone.
Initiative we did was the Global Cardboard Challenge. It was on October 6th of 2012, which was the 1-year anniversary of the flash mob where people came out to make Kane's Day. 1 year later, we invited people around the world to register an event and build anything they could imagine using cardboard and their creativity. And in 3 weeks, I made a follow-up film, which you can see, Kane's Arcade 2. And within 3 weeks of that film launching, we had over 270 cardboard challenge events in 40 countries on 6 continents around the world. Tens of thousands of participants, kids playing, making, and these events raised tens of thousands of dollars for different causes. Now this will become an annual event once a year where people in their community can come out and celebrate the creativity and imagination of kids everywhere. So that happened. And in Los Angeles, we had a really great event where Kane got to, the mayor came out, and Kane got to add the mayor to his staff. He was also given a cardboard key to the city.
12-minute documentary. I really encourage you to try it out. It's really inspiring. So a great deal of groundwork has already been laid for the story world of Kane's Arcade. But young people, as you can see, continually have opportunities to change and contribute to how the Kane's Arcade universe will evolve and grow. Perhaps something France wants to get involved in. Now, beyond looking at case studies, the Annenberg Innovation Lab, at the Annenberg Innovation Lab, I led a team of researchers, media artists, and educators in pushing the boundaries of designing transmedia play experiences through digital publishing, a whole nother area that we feel like is ready to blow up. So we were given Caldecott Award-winning author David Wiesner's wordless picture book, Flotsam, to use as the content in the experiment. Our goal was to apply the transmedia play principles that I've reviewed to an actual product development cycle. So part of creating paradigm-shifting play patterns is to expand the notion of what reading and writing is in the digital age. We developed places to play both inside the digital book that we designed and in their physical locations, which allowed them for different points of entry for different types of learners. So another key theme of our experiment was to explore new worlds and cross-cultural exchanges. So, for example, children had the ability to add themselves to the story through this camera design that we built with inside the book. And they could use this camera interface to not only record their stories, take their own photos, be curious and science makers in their backyard, to add their own contributions to Flotsam. And then they could bring it in and remix it with the original story in the creation station, allowing a child to co-author and co-design and personalize their reading experience. Now, Flotsam in the story often blends science fact and science fiction as a way to provoke curiosity within children. And the team enhanced this element by layering an integrated science curriculum connected to the sea life, the 7 oceans, and geography depicted in the book's illustrations over the narrative through this interactive geolocated map feature. So not only could I geolocate myself where I am, I could place any of the kids in the book anywhere along the map and see about those different countries and oceans that they lived near. Another feature was further enabled through a collectible Explorer cards kit that was both digital, where you could find them, just surprising little Easter eggs hidden through the digital book, or physically used in a trading card game where you learned about the southern hemisphere and the northern hemisphere. It was actually a math game. So, and I'm happy to show it to you. I've got it on my tablet if you want to see it. So this is the world we live in. These are a couple of different examples that I've shared with you. And they're all stories, whether they're fiction or nonfiction. They cross different media platforms, and they offer the audience more opportunities to participate than ever before. So what we've seen throughout the examples, whether it is through transmedia entertainment, journalism, branding, or play, is that the future of transmedia is emergent, it's social, and it offers opportunities for us to learn from each other. Thank you. I'll put this on if you have any questions.